Okay, so in the last lesson we talked about the diminished scale as a dominant scale, the scale that you can use over a dominant chord. So this time I'm going to talk about this scale, the diminished scale, as a diminished sound. You can play it over a diminished chord, and when you start the half whole scale, the half whole step scale with a half step, like we did before, you get the dominant scale. But if you start with a whole step, from C in this case, we get a diminished sound. So here's the diminished scale. Right, so it's roots, the 9th, the minor 3rd, the 11th, the flat 5, the flat 6 or the flat 13, the flat 6, and the major 7. It's actually, the A note is actually a double flat 7 if you want to be very specific, but it's easier to think of it as a 6th or a 13th, in my opinion. I also tend to think of the F sharp rather than the G flat, even though you might think, well, flat 5, shouldn't that be G flat? For me, it's just easier to think of it as an F sharp in this case. You also get, you could think of it this way, right? So 4 notes from the C minor, 4 notes from F sharp minor. Just like in the previous lesson, we can create a diminished chord from the root, and then we get the remaining 4 notes we can use as extensions of this chord. So the most common, I guess, would be to add the major 7. So you would get something called a diminished major 7 chord, which is, it's basically a B triad over C. So it's a slash chord. Not super unusual. I mean, you hear it in more modern music, like Kenny Wheeler tunes, I guess, and stuff like that. It's actually, you can hear it in even in Django Reinhardt's tune, Djangoology. I don't think he thought of it as a diminished major 7, but the sound is still there, so it's not that new. And it's a very enigmatic sound, I guess you could say. So you need to get used to it. So I made a little backing track, just like before. Create a backing track. I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but you know, you get used to the sound. So you just jam on that sound for a while. So, just like before, I'm going to give you some licks. This first one here is an extremely common diminished lick, very cliche, so again, be careful. But it goes like this. And again, you can, because the diminished scale is symmetrical, you can move it as you like. And over the VAB it sounds like this. Okay, this next lick here, example number 2, is something that I think I stole from guitar player Jonathan Kreisberg. It sounds like something he would play. So basically what it is, it's an F triad kind of. With a passing note there, an A flat triad, and a B triad. Because you can find all these triads within this diminished scale, which is kind of interesting, right? So it's a 6-note pattern, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you could play this as 8 notes or triplets. Let's hear what that sounds like. Right, so you get the idea there. If you take 2 triads from this scale and 2 triads that are a tritone apart from each other, in this case B triad and F triad, you can create all sorts of interesting patterns. Again, you want to be careful so you don't sound too much like a pattern machine, but you can definitely use these to create interesting sounds, and it's kind of reminds me of something that players like, I don't know, Mikko Brecker would play, that kind of stuff, Chicoria perhaps. So this next one goes, so it's a B triad, F triad, and a B triad. And again, you can move it to other places. There are 4 major triads within this scale, right? So let's hear what it sounds like. These kind of triadic things, you run into fingering problems. I find myself in finger problem territory, but there's always a way to solve that. It's also called hexatonics, right? I have a previous lesson on hexatonics. When you take 2 triads that don't contain the same notes, you can create a 6-note kind of scale or a 6-note sound that usually is referred to as hexatonics or triad coupling. Okay, so before I leave you, I'm gonna show you what it sounds like if I play both of the diminished chords at the same time, which is called the double diminished chord. So I'll get over to the piano.
So if I play a diminished chord from C, those are the 4 notes that that's the basic diminished chord, right? If I play a D diminished on top of that, then I create what's called a double diminished chord. So these notes are the extensions. That's the double diminished chord, which is basically all the notes of the diminished scale, just playing in a different order.